everyone, it's James Chamberlain, and today I am really excited to present to you guys a very special video, the first video of this year, 2022, a video that really symbolizes my ambition and symbolizes where I intend to go with the channel and what we are planning on doing as we move forward into the new year. Today, guys, I'm going to be building a new PC. That is right, guys, as I'm sure you were able to notice behind me, we are building a computer today from start to finish. It's really been a long needed upgrade, as my current rig with an old AMD FX 8320 processor and GTX 1060 just haven't really been cutting it lately in terms of video editing and gaming. We've been dealing with tons of lag and just all sorts of stuff that just makes video editing an unfriendly environment to me. This new rig for my setup is going to simplify my life a ton. It's going to be where I produce all the videos on this channel, from gaming, recording, editing, streaming. All of that's going to be done on this new PC. In addition to my schoolwork, another thing that I do at my desk setup every single day. Overall, this build is just going to really simplify my life. I'm so hyped to get into this one and give you guys an overview of everything that we're going to be doing today in the video. Before we do that, though, I want to give credit where credit is due. I want to give a massive shout out to God. This has really been a prayer come true. I've wanted to build a new PC for such a long time. It's been a major dream of mine. In addition to that, I also want to give a shout out to my grandpa for being a longtime viewer, supporter, and fan of the channel and wanting to help me and help sponsor this project. I really appreciate that help there. Anyway though, guys, I am super hyped for this and I can't hold myself back any further. Let's go ahead and get into looking at our components. Alrighty, guys, let's now go ahead and go over all of these awesome components that we're going to be using in today's build. I'm going to provide you guys an overview of all of the hardware I'll be using in the PC, as well as what its job does and where it does stand in the PC hardware category. I decided to go ahead and begin this overview with the CPU, the central processing unit. For my CPU, I picked the Intel Core i9-10900K. This is a 10-core and 20-thread CPU with a turbo boost on a single core up to 5.3 gigahertz, which is absolutely blazing fast. Obviously, it goes without saying that this CPU is an incredible gaming CPU, and thanks to its high core and thread count, it's also quite a monster when it comes to productivity. This CPU will do a great job editing any type of video that we need to do, rendering any type of models, or photoshopping any type of thumbnails we need. Whatever it is, this processor is a great processor for it. This thing is a real monster. Alrighty, guys, next up, the component I know all of you guys have been thinking about and just wondering if that piece behind me is in fact authentic or not. For my graphics card, I have in fact selected the GeForce RTX 3080 Ti. The RTX 3080 Ti is quite simply just about the best gaming graphics card you can get right now. It tops all the charts. Need more be said, this isn't just any old 3080 Ti, it is the EVGA for the Win 3 Ultra. This graphics card right here is the biggest, baddest, meanest variant of the world's greatest gaming graphics card. Save for the RTX 3090 and upcoming Ti, this GPU right here is the absolute best you can get, with performance that actually beats the 3090 in certain areas. Productivity softwares like video and photo editing suites rely more on graphics cards than they ever have, and if you have a better graphics card, the suite will perform much better for you. For this reason, I wanted a GPU with some true muscle, and what better pick than the RTX 3080 Ti. This card is a powerhouse and will make editing video, rendering videos, all of that good stuff far faster and easier for me. Next up, guys, moving on down the list of essential computer components, we have our RAM, the random access memory. For my RAM, I've gone with G.Skill's unique and beautiful Trident Z Royal. The Trident Z Royal memory comes with some very unique looking RAM DIMMs. The RAM DIMMs themselves are meant to resemble polished silver and or gold, and they have some beautiful looking crystallized tops on the top of the heat spreader where RGB shines through, and it just looks amazing. As for capacity and speed, I have gotten 64 gigabytes of 3600 megahertz memory. This is far more memory than any average user could ever hope to use, but for the type of work that I do, having 64 gigabytes could be very helpful, as I do lots of editing and heavy duty work where the more RAM the better. Just a pro tip here, guys, I see lots of people focusing way too much on the capacity of RAM they have in their system. In almost all cases, 16 gigabytes will be plenty for any type of gaming or multitasking and light video editing that you need to do. If you're doing some heavier 4K editing, then 32 gigabytes might be a great option to invest in so that you can still multitask and have some headroom, but 64 gigabytes is almost never necessary. If you need that amount of RAM, you will know. Next, for the motherboard, the circuit board that all of our other components are going to connect to, I have decided to go with MSI's MAG Z590 Torpedo. It was much better than all of the Z490 boards I saw for 10th gen, so I figured I might as well just pick up something a bit newer. This Z590 motherboard is a very solid mid-range option from MSI and should have no problem handling our i9-10900K thanks to its expansive feature set as well as the heavy-duty extended heat spreaders that will really do a good job of just keeping those VRMs cool under load. Few motherboards have this unique black and blue color scheme that the Torpedo does, which is one of the reasons that I selected it. However, guys, it is important to note that this board does not have Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. But if you don't need Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, this is a great Z590 motherboard. Continuing to whiz on through, we have our system storage. That's where all of the files that we download and save will be stored. For our main boot drive, we're going to be using the Samsung 970 EVO Plus. My specific drive is the 500GB model. Thanks to that blazing fast NVMe speed, this drive should boot the system in a matter of seconds and the computer should be insanely snappy under use. As for secondary storage, I'm using two 1TB Western Digital blue SATA SSDs. That would be these bad boys right here. Both of them are SATA SSDs, so they're not quite as fast as the NVMe, but they are still lightning quick compared to hard drives and will make this system blazing fast. For my CPU cooler, I've selected the Be Quiet PureLoop 360. This cooler is a really good one for its price. It's a 360mm radiator, which means that this is definitely on the larger size of all-in-one liquid coolers. This thing should have no problem handling our 10900K, especially thanks to our 6-fan push-pull setup that we will be using. To accommodate for that push-pull setup, I picked up 3 additional fans. The Corsair makes good fans, and these are some of the best of the best. Next up, guys, it's crazy to think that I've already gone over all of that stuff. But lastly, aside from the case, we have our PSU, the power supply. When selecting a power supply, it is very, very important to make sure that you're getting yourself a good quality unit that's not going to do something like go up in flames or fail and fry your components. And since this build does have such powerful components inside of it, I picked an equally powerful PSU. This is the Corsair HX1000. It's 1000 watts, so it will have enough power to cover this entire system. In addition to that, it's 80+ platinum, which makes it just about efficient as they come. In every regard, this PSU is premium and I am not afraid to trust my components to it. Lastly, guys, I have the case. I know you guys can't really see it behind me as it is ginormous, but this case is the Corsair iCUE 5000X RGB, and this is the white edition, which is just a beautiful, great looking case, as you will see in just 1 second when we unbox it. There you go, folks. It was extremely exhausting going over all of these components and all of the specifications. I'm a little bit sore after going over what seems like well over 100 takes and mistakes trying to get this intro filmed, but I think we've gotten it, and now I am so hyped to finally get into the PC build. Without further ado, let's hop right in. If you guys can see right here, we've got my new pig Buford here. Buford here is going to be supervising me and making sure that I build the computer correctly and don't mess up any of the components. So I am really, really glad to have his help as well. But now I think it's time to go over our components. Here is the motherboard. We're gonna go ahead and get all of our motherboard components out of the box right now, guys. Got some cool stickers, all sorts of neat stuff inside of the motherboard box, as you guys can see. But we're gonna go ahead and grab our 2 SATA cables, which we are definitely gonna need later in the build as we start installing our drives. Now, folks, a really handy trick when you're building a PC is to open up the motherboard box and get all your stuff out, and then go ahead and close that box and seal it back up. Now we can actually use this box as a working surface for assembling our components on the motherboard itself. Let's open up this beauty. That is a sweet looking board, if I do say so myself. Alrighty, now that the motherboard is here, I'm gonna go ahead and peel off this sticker right there so that I don't have that in the way. And now it's time to begin the actual build itself by putting in our CPU. Let's go ahead and open this bad boy up. Okay guys, now let's go ahead and open up the socket on the board to install the processor. So for that, what you want to do is you want to gently press down here on this latch while lightly pulling out, and then lift the latch up and pull up on this tab here, which exposes the socket. Now be very, very careful because there are little pins in here. If you are not careful, you can actually bend these pins, so you don't want to force or jam anything. Just be very, very careful with these components. Then let's gently grab the CPU by the corners. You don't want to touch the bottom of the processor back here. here, as that's kind of where it makes the contacts. Now, for actually installing the CPU, you should see a small gold triangle on one of the CPU corners. As you can see right there, I've got a triangle right here. It's actually quite tiny. Since the CPU has a triangle, the motherboard, of course, has one too. For this board, we actually don't get a triangle and we get a little bit of a dot there, but that bottom left corner is still where we're going to install it. All right, now let's go ahead and drop our CPU in very, very carefully. There we go. There we go. It looks good, just like that. It looks like it dropped in. Now let's just go ahead and bring down the retainer here and then press there. That looks correct. That should be installed. For these Intel CPUs, the clip itself should gradually get harder to press down as you push. Just make sure there aren't any obstructions. Even if it's a little bit firm, just keep on pressing as long as you don't feel any major obstructions. Now next up, guys, normally I go ahead and continue with the build and continue working on the motherboard, but really quickly, while we do have our motherboard out, I want to unbox the cooler and actually put this cooler's mounting plate on. Alright, we got a bag with a lot of hardware here. Here is our little Be Quiet branded bag. They actually went to the trouble to brand their own bag. That's pretty cool. But right here, let's open that up, and this has the thermal paste and all the things you'll need to install our cooler later in the future. We basically need to take these screws and put these rubber washers on them, is what it looks like in the video. Alrighty, 4 of those are on. Very good. Now the way that we install this one, guys, is we actually have to put these in, and they're not held by anything, but we have to put some brackets on the other side to hold them in, and I'm actually finding that pretty hard to do. I'm finding it pretty hard to tip this board over and do it. So I'm going to go ahead and actually use a little bit of Scotch tape here really quickly to just go ahead and tape these down to the bracket itself so that I can tip it over more easily without having to worry about these screws falling out. Let's remove that tape we put on earlier. We don't want to leave this on any longer than we have to. Alright guys, I got the cooler mounting hardware on, as you can see. Now we're going to go ahead and set that aside for now, and we're going to go ahead and install our NVMe SSD. And we're actually going to be installing in the second slot here, as I'm only using a 10th gen processor, which only supports PCI 3.0. And this here is actually meant for 11th gen processors that support 4.0, so this slot actually won't work with our CPU. Okay guys, I was being really dumb, and for some reason I actually forgot that there could potentially be plastic under here for the thermal pad that contacts the SSD, and there is in fact some plastic here. Let's peel that off. Definitely make sure you pay attention to things like this when you're building your PC, guys. Okay guys, next we will be installing our RAM. Now RAM installs are super easy. All you have to do is take your RAM, open up the tabs on your motherboard, go ahead and see the notch down here on the bottom of the RAM. There should be a little bit of a notch on the board slot as well, and you want to go ahead and align those. This case does open up in a fairly interesting way here. You want to unscrew these until they're just kind of dangling here, and then you want to actually push this back, and these are actually quite tricky to open, but there we go. Alrighty, so in order to get this to fit, we are definitely going to need to remove this bottom panel right here. Alright, there it goes. Come on. There we go. We got it. Alrighty guys, now we're going to open up this other side panel so that I can get access to the back of the case. Alright, there we go, we're in. Let's peel back the tape here. Now this is the spacer that I'm going to use. Actually, while I'm at it, I might as well take out this hard drive cage since we're not using any hard drives in this build. Come on. While I'm down here at the hard drive cage, I am going to grab our little accessory box from the case. Now when pulling this accessory box out, I noticed that it actually has some tabs that are digging into the cardboard to kind of keep it there, so you have to press out a little bit to get this out easily. Alrighty guys, back around the case again. Let's try to get these clips aligned in here. These crazy clips. Everything on this case is designed to clip in. Darn guys, we've got a really tough decision to make right now. I decided to really quickly test fit the motherboard and radiator in the case. So right here, as you can see, I've got my radiator set up in a little bit of a way where the pump unit right here is actually slightly higher than the top of the radiator, which long term could potentially in the future wear out our pump a little bit faster than if we had the pump at the bottom of the radiator, simply because of the way that air rises in the water. If you take a look now with the radiator down the other way, it's gonna have to look like this, which is not only stretching the limits of our cables, but then these hoses here are actually going to get in the way of the graphics card, and it's just not going to look as good. Alrighty, now up here, let's make some space for our radiator, guys. There's the first fan. Just gonna go ahead and slide that in there like that. Looks good. Alrighty guys, next it is time to do more fans. Now guys, when you are working with computer fans, one important thing to note is that the face of the fan is usually the side of the fan that's going to suck the air. So this side of the fan here is the side that's going to be sucking air in, and this side of the side with the fan grill on this side where it has some little guards, this is going to be the side that's going to be pushing the air out and shoving it out. Drop that light on in, and there we go. There should be some motherboard screws. Okay guys, next up, now that that's done, let's go ahead and install some of our case fans. These are some Corsair fans I bought to go ahead and finish out the case. Since we're using the push-pull setup here, we're going to need to put some additional matching RGB fans up in the top and back. These actually come with a nice little fan hub, or an RGB hub rather. I don't think we'll need the RGB hub since we've already got one back there, but nonetheless, it is cool that if you buy these triple pack Corsair fans, these 120mm ones, they will actually give you these RGB hubs. Okay guys, the two top fans up here are installed, and now I'm going to go ahead and install the rear exhaust fan back here. Alrighty, I got that done. All of the fans are now hooked up. Now I'm going to go ahead and get our SSDs in since these require power. I just kind of want to get everything that requires power put into the build now. That way when we install the power supply, we won't have to worry about putting in more things later, and we can just get it all done in one go. Here are our two SSDs. This here says to remove before installing, so we better go ahead and do that right now since we are about to install this drive. Let's just route the SATA cable through here, of course. Then we'll go ahead and use these SATA ports on the side of the motherboard since they are the closest and will be the best for cable management. There's one. Alrighty guys, here is the PSU. Once again, this is the Corsair HX1000, a really great unit. It's 80 plus platinum. That means it's nearly maximum efficiency, so it's going to be really, really good that way. And this unit should be just a little bit more power than we need for the build, which definitely leaves us some much needed headroom. Got some zip ties. It's nice that they come with that. And then we got our power cable, which is actually a really thick, nice quality cord. And then we have a little bag in here. Inside of here are all of our power supply cables. That's right guys, they give you this really cool bag that comes with all of your modular cables. Alrighty, now let's start getting out some of the cables that we will need for the build. Of course we're going to need our main 24 pin, which will be right there. Also going to need one set of SATA cables. That should be enough there. We're going to need 3 of our 8 pins for the graphics card since this is a 3080 Ti. It's a very hungry card, so there are those 3. Then we're just going to need a couple more motherboard connections and we should be all good. Alrighty guys, let's go ahead and actually begin here by just getting some power to our SSDs with this big SATA cable right here that has multiple SATA connections on it, of course. Let's put these into our SSDs. Then we have our fan headers here, which are going to be 3 and 4. Okay guys, finally we are almost completely done. I know I did a lot of work off camera, but that's just mostly because I've been really busy trying to get this done. Now I've actually only got about 1 hour before I actually need to be on this computer and using it because I have a meeting to attend to. With the last couple things we've got to do now is we need to just go ahead and install our CPU heatsink, or rather our CPU block, I guess, since this is a water cooler, and then of course our graphics card. Okay guys, here we go. Let's apply the thermal paste. Put a nice bit of it right there. That should be plenty. Just tighten each side a little bit as we go so that we apply some even pressure here. Alright, that is good. The CPU is done. Here we go. Would you look at that, guys? Now this is a beefy GPU. I don't know if it's coming across on camera, but this thing is a monster. Let's go ahead and get ready to get it installed. First of all, let's remove the little bottom cover right here from the card. This is an interesting way to do a peel. So we're just going to grab this card from the bottom, of course. Make sure you remove all of the plastic coverings on the card. Actually have a couple more peels I almost missed. These ones on the fans. And they don't make these fan ones easy to do at all. There it comes. Peels are nice when you can actually get them off, guys. Alrighty, let's see here. PCIe bracket is open. Just gonna gently slide it in there. Oh, I think we've got it, guys. Try to hold the card up and then screw that in there just like that. There we go, guys. Now let's just plug in our power really quickly. Now, unfortunately, I only had 2 of these nice, pretty extension cables here. So what I'm actually going to have to do here is I'm going to have to use one of the stock cables, which is a shame. But I'm going to put that in the middle so that it kind of matches our black and white color scheme. Okay, guys, this is the real moment of truth. I've got this computer all hooked up here. And now, let's turn on the computer. Well guys, I think I know our problem. I think it has to do with the front panel connections. Alrighty guys, the computer is running and I see something here on the monitor. It looks quite good right there. Wow, look at that guys, looking good. Let's go ahead and put in our Windows SSD. And let's go ahead and reset so that we will reboot the machine and see what we can do now. Oh, it looks like Windows is booting up, guys. Look at that. It's ready to install Windows. I'm gonna go ahead and get that installed and I'll get back to you guys once that's done. Alrighty folks, well the journey has begun. Thank you so much for sitting through this episode and watching me build my PC. As mentioned, guys, this video is going to be divided into 2 separate chapters, so definitely be on the lookout for that part 2 where I overview this new build and then go over all of its performance and kind of just compare that to my old rig as well as my expectations. Once again, guys, just be on the lookout for that next video, as there are definitely some very surprising results in it and I have a lot to say. Anyway, though, if you did enjoy this one and if you learned a little something about computers that you didn't know before, please just leave a like and maybe even subscribe. Goodbye, everyone.